This is a conversation with Dan Leeman, the CEO and co-founder of Automation Helpers, a boutique no-code agency based in the USA. In the short time that we had together, we discussed the intricacies of running a no-code agency in 2024, as well as what the future holds for automation helpers, no-code agencies, and of course, the industry as a whole. Now, a quick disclaimer, my camera was having a bit of a bad day. So yeah, we're going to try and improve things in the next interview. But without any further ado, let's get stuck in. Dude, thank you so much for taking the time. I've been preparing for this. There's a lot of interesting things that I want to ask you. And yeah, if you're good, want to kick things off?
Yeah, sounds great.
Awesome. Cool. All right. So contrary to how I start these things off usually, I will start things off with a quick fire round of questions, just to kind of like break the ice and, just like loosen up a little bit.
Sure.
Ready for that? Okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. So it's 5 questions. First thing that comes to mind, just shoot. All right. So coffee or tea to start your day?
Tea.
Awesome. Most overrated buzzword in tech?
Seamless.
Okay, I would say AI probably, but seamless.
Well, sure, yeah.
Definitely.
I'll give you that.
There,
I think
like
seamless was stuck in my mind from, like a decade earlier, probably. Everything is seamless integration. And
seamless. Meanwhile,
AI,
nothing is seamless. Meanwhile, nothing is seamless. Everything needs to be maintained. Anyway, let's keep going. Most important soft skill for leaders to have?
Compassion.
Best advice you've ever received?
I think focusing on the here and now as you're making strategic decisions so that you can, get the right building blocks in place to focus on the bigger picture later.
Okay, cool. Favorite no-code tool?
Ooh.
Or at least right now. Right now.
Yeah. I would say the one that I'm most excited about the innovation that I've been seeing is Zapier.
Okay. Very, very interesting answers. So, Dan, that's it. The quick fire round is done, so we can check that off the list. I agree. I think Zapier is making some big moves. They've been kind of like, I feel, building that war chest over the last, 10 years now?
Yeah.
They've captured so much of that automation market, and now I feel like they're trying to eat into areas like where Airtable is dominating, or things like software is dominating, like front end of things, and even like chatbots. So yeah, definitely a very exciting time for Zapier. It's very interesting. Now, to start things off in the normal sort of way, I want to talk a little bit about your origin story. I've obviously looked at your LinkedIn, and I've noticed that you've been a solutions architect for a very long time. You've worked at some very prestigious, at least in my mind, companies like Zoom, right? The thing that we use all day, every day, Sugar CRM. And you've been a solutions architect there in various capacities, managerial, and all that. And I can kind of see the progression of how one might build a business around providing solutions. But if we take that out of the equation as a thing, what inspired you to found Automation Helpers, other than the solution architecting thing?
So other than like how my career path led up to it, just kind of what was the inspiration?
Because that is kind of like a natural progression, but what other factors played a role?
For sure. So I guess a couple things. So I actually started my career in teaching. I was a public school teacher far before I was in tech. And I've always really had a passion for helping people do things and kind of breaking down ideas into their simplest forms to be able to share with people. And I think that theme for me has always kind of been a constant. And of course, it's very different when you're working on big enterprise project-y kind of stuff. But still the idea of just communicating and better understanding people and meeting them where they're at in the progression, I think is a similar skill set when we're working with different businesses, because as you're well aware, I'm sure with your clients, how many people are still operating on spreadsheets today, and taking them where that is at to be able to get them to the next level. It's not saying you have to go from 0 to 60 in, a month. It's finding people where they're at and then finding kind of that next progression for them. And I saw that, I think, with my students. In terms of building the business, we've had a lot of success with automation helpers, and sometimes I feel like it's almost a overnight success that kind of fell into our laps. But that's after many, many failures of entrepreneurial things. So I always knew that I wanted to have some sort of business and do my own thing. Even when I was a teacher, so I was a music teacher, and I was trying to
music teacher.
Yeah,
I was a music teacher too.
Really?
Yes. What did you teach?
I was a high school band and middle school band teacher for a few years.
I was a guitar teacher. Like, in fact,
really?
Music was what I studied. But then after studying it for like 10 years, I moved to London, and suddenly I had to pay rent. And I realized very quickly that I was not the next John Bon Jovi. So I became a waiter.
Yeah.
Which paid the bills. And then I also had to take a second job. So yeah, life was tough. But music, how interesting.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because on our team, I think there are 3 or 4 of us with like music major backgrounds. One ended up being a COO of a company, but he was, I think, like piano and organ major in college, and then another band director in our midst too. So I definitely have seen actually a lot of music teachers and music creative folks actually do really well kind of in no code and some more the technical stuff.
Wow. More to that, our head of development is a music teacher as well, like a career path music teacher who also got like an audio engineering degree and was like teaching students full time, and basically got a little bit bored of that and switched gears. Now, talking about your business, and this is like a very nice segue into sort of the next set of things that I want to ask. What have been some of the biggest challenges? I mean, I understand that automation helpers is fairly fresh. You've been around 2 years or so. At least that's what LinkedIn says. What have been some of the biggest challenges for you guys internally and maybe even external?
Yeah, great question. So I think one thing has been, from the onset, we knew we wanted to be more the agency model. And obviously there's a ton of really successful individual freelancers, or maybe they work with a couple people. And so when you are building the DNA, and I'm actually, I know you're asking me the questions, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts too. Like when you're building the DNA for a larger company, for an agency, the processes that you invest into are very different than if you're just trying to find 2 clients for yourself as an individual to take on. And so, for us, I knew right away that I'm going to really invest in like the YouTube content creation side and spend time in marketing and business development, because we knew that we want to be able to bring on a team. In order to do that, then we have to think really how we can sustain that. And so from the early onset, it was, okay, I'm not going to take a paycheck day one because we're going to invest in the growth of the company. And then that paid off really, really quickly. And I think that's continuing to invest in content has really been the strength of our company. But with all of that comes just scalability of things. So it's very easy to have, tightly controlled, I'm the architect and everything comes through me. But suddenly when you have 20 people operating on the team, making sure that you've got all the same consistency across all the different team members, and how do you help people elevate their own skills? We find a lot of people with strong technical skills, but then how do you get them the same level of the business skills and understanding business processes? So I think, consistency as you grow really quickly is a huge thing to be working on. And I think that's something that just with our growth is something that we've been focused on now the past few months is to say, how do we make sure that everybody gets the same level of service delivery of what we're providing? And then I think the other thing too is we don't actually see ourselves, no code for us is kind of like a marketing term. It's an umbrella that we fit into. But we also have, low code and developers that we have on our team. And so for us, it's more kind of unifying around that. And so one of the things that makes us a little bit unique is we really try to take a fairly technology agnostic approach. And that's actually one of the things that I've really had fun watching your content, because I think both of us dive a lot into, looking at the value propositions of different pieces of software that are out there. And so when we started, it was like a ton of Airtable projects, because there's high volume in the market, and that's still like one of the primary platforms. Still one of the primary platforms that we're doing. But now we're taking on retool projects, and we've been doing a lot of Smart Suite, and so these platforms start to add up, and so you have to figure out a way of, okay, do you specialize? Do you have teams that run certain tools? Do you try to have kind of a consistent level of understanding, like these are database tools and these are more low code, require some SQL, JavaScript kind of skills to be able to do? And so I think for us, we've always wanted to meet the customer where they're at in the progression of how deep of technical skills they need on these projects. And so it's trying to understand how to best structure our company so that we can meet that demand, rather than just specializing in a single tool to be able to provide those services.
Interesting. Okay, so I'm basically hearing consistency across the board, not just consistency within one stack, so to speak. I resonate with that. I mean, consistency for us maybe was a little bit of an issue a few years ago, but from the moment that the vast majority of devs are on a very high level, not just technical, but also experience level, because you could, like we've seen guys straight out of uni who might be technically well-versed, but they don't know how projects really run. They don't have the emotional intelligence to sit down, shut up, and listen to clients and take on feedback and provide solutions. Sorry, excuse the pun. So that takes time. From our perspective, I'm sure you're wondering, our biggest challenge, I would say, is to actually find good people who are not just techies. Like, we've had tech guys, super tech guys, but for the life of me, they just don't get business. Or they just don't understand how it works. And you can give them X amount of time, but at the end, you probably need to look for somebody else. So that's one of the key challenges for us. And I think a pivotal practical thing is coming up with a training curriculum almost that can quickly weed out, at least from the technical perspective, people who get it technically, not just, yes, I know how to code in Java. It's more like I understand the challenge and I have ideas about how to solve it, and I don't give up easily as a person. Or when I'm giving a description of my work to my head of development, I don't go on for paragraphs and paragraphs about the challenges that I had for completing that task, for instance. So we're looking for those kinds of people. And turnover is turnover, but there are gems. There are people out there who fit the bill. Now, you can kind of
can I pick back up of what you're saying there, Alex? I mean, I think for us on the hiring side, I don't know how you feel, but when we put out a job application, we're probably met with 200 responses really quickly, and 90% of them are like medium to strong on the tech side. Like, almost everybody's strong on strong, I guess, is relative, but everyone's noodled around with no code tools and that kind of stuff. But the business skills, the business acumen is what's so rare. And so we've kind of almost flip-flopped our hiring model, where we say we really value the business skills, And I would rather hire someone with stronger business skills who can hop in and really understand process, and then supplement, hopefully they have some technical background, but that's way easier to build up as a skill set.
Yes. We've been doing that since forever. We've tried going the technical route, but I feel like the vast majority, I think right now on the team, pretty much everybody started from zero. In other words, they had almost nil technical skills and they grew into it. Usually it's people who have something to lose. It's a strict thing to say, but I've seen that sort of person who's got rent to pay or who's got something to lose to actually thrive in this, because it kind of forces you to constantly think on your feet, be curious, try and solve your own problems way before asking the team for help. So definitely business skills first. Tech you can teach it. And that's why we're kind of focusing on developing a really good curriculum to see if you can grasp certain basic things within a month, let's say, paid, right? Yeah. Within a month. And if you pass that litmus test, then great. Then let's turn you into like this ninja of an automator, integrator, tech. When I was writing some of these questions, I was kind of like thinking about the fact that we're both like mechanics to a degree. And for some weird reason, the adage of, the typical mechanic who builds cars, who fixes cars for clients, but doesn't really do much for his own rust bucket. Like I've found myself in that position a bunch of times. But how do you foster innovation and creativity for automation helpers, like within the team? Do you do anything to like promote it within the team? Is there, I don't know, some kind of activity? What is it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. So I'd love to say we've rolled this out across the whole team. We haven't, probably since we're, a mix of employees and contractors and things like that. But early on when we started, we said we can't have a name like automation helpers and then have, next to no automation in our business. I don't know about you, but I've seen like tons of marketing agencies where they come on Reddit and they're like, how do I get leads for my marketing agency? And I'm like, how in the world can you be a marketing agency, but you don't invest in, the client acquisition part of a marketing agency? So we knew, both from a reputational standpoint, and then also just because we wanted to scale, that we had to invest in automation in our own business. So I don't know if Google still does it, but do you remember like maybe a decade ago, there were tons of news stories about how Google had their like 80-20 time or whatever, or maybe it was 10% time, where employees would kind of have this like creative portion of their week. They've got the bulk of what they do, and then they've got this chunk of time that they spend on.
I think I remember something about that.
Yeah. So I mean, that was kind of in Google's heyday when, don't be evil, and a few things have maybe changed since then. But and so for us, we just said, hey, if we're doing any kind of process that could be automated, that we can both use as a proof of concept for our clients, and it provides real value for us, let's go ahead and automate it. And so we actually basically use kind of our own systems as prototypes or as demos that we can show to our clients, because everything from leads coming into our website to contracting and the sales process to invoicing, all of that, we just invested in automation. We know it's like a non-billable project for us, but we said, hey, we need to do this because this is at the heart and soul of what we do, and we get to be kind of our own test case here. We can be a test dummy of what works and what doesn't work. And so I think that for us, we've had lots of people working on different projects. So sometimes, in the same way you're talking about a curriculum, we've brought in, kind of some associate level consultants who, to get up to skill on some of the more technical side, it's like, hey, here's this piece we want you to be able to build out. And sure, it's not client facing and that kind of stuff yet, but being able to directly apply that to something that we're working on internally in our business.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. Interesting. All right. That's an interesting point of view. I mean, I would say from our perspective that we develop so many crazy things for clients that sometimes you kind of lose track of what could be applied to us. And if something works, don't fix it. It kind of applies to some departments. It almost feels like consistency of a certain action that works is almost more valuable than being a smartass. Like, it has to hurt a lot I feel like, for us to kind of like say, okay, yes, there are bits and bobs of automation here and there, especially within departments like accounts, for instance, where you kind of need that sort of thing. But generally speaking, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I guess we've come from a place where we've broken and tested a bunch of different processes internally, and we've like settled that, okay, this works, dude, until it hurts. And you alluded to companies that are like a one-man band or like a two-man band. I'm sure, I know that we had different problems and kind of different processes as well when we were a two-man band compared to a 10, 15-man band. Yeah. You get different problems as you grow. So I feel like as we're going to grow in the next, year, 2 years, 5 years, I feel like there's going to be more automation that's going to be required in certain areas, because certain processes, you can't just throw bodies at them, like humans, at fixing a process. So totally with you on that one. Now, I want to touch a little bit, and I want to pivot a tiny bit into your personal leadership journey. How has your leadership evolved since you've started the company?
Yeah, I mean, so to be totally truthful, having codependency on co-founders has been huge. So for us, we actually have 3 co-founders in our business. So I'm primarily responsible for marketing and new initiatives. We're doing some productized offerings and templatized kind of things that we're doing. And so I'm largely on the go-to-market side. And so I am the CEO of our company, and that all rolls up to me. But Ben Mackley is my co-founder who runs our services team. And we have so much interdependency that to be able to find like the right leadership team and be able to say, like, I inherently trust you as much as I trust myself to be able to run with this process has been huge. I actually don't know how I'd be able to run all these things by myself. We've got my co-founder, Eli Geske. He's our CTO. He runs our productization efforts of what we're doing. We're building a little SaaS piece of it on the side. And so for me, it's been having the right people in the right places. You were talking largely about your hiring process and finding the right people being the biggest thing. And I feel the same way. I think finding the right attitudes and that right hunger, you were mentioning people without something to lose. And that's, we find a lot of career transitioners. We find people with deep expertise, running operations sides of businesses, and they see an opportunity, and finding them and slotting them in the right holes, I think is like, it feels like magic when it's running on all cylinders and you have the right people doing the right roles. We follow a system called the Entrepreneurial Operating System, EOS. Gino Wickman wrote a book called Traction. And there's this phrase of want it, you have the ability to do it, and you have the capacity to do it. Those 3 factors determine whether you're in the right role for this. And oftentimes you might be lacking in a certain area, like, cool, I'm really good at this process. I want to do it, but I don't have capacity to do it. Well, then you got to move things around and make that happen. Yeah. Or people who need to be shored up on the skills side for that. And I think trying to reflect on that question of who's in each role and if they meet that criteria for it, I think is huge in terms of building up the structure and being able to lead a company. Because I take a pretty minimalist leader approach. I'm not like, cool, this is all about me and my experience and how we do it, I honestly think it's about finding the right kind of people and the right kind of culture fit for the team.
I agree. It's finding the right attitudes. Wow. I feel like attitude alone can take you everywhere. Maybe it's not even that something to lose thing. Maybe you don't have something to lose. Maybe something else drives you as an individual.
Sure.
For me, for instance, success is a key driver. In the sense of, I mean, at least it was a key driver. I feel like as I grow older, my drivers change in the sense that maybe when I was about 20, 25 years old, yes, success, being good at something, being great at something, that was my key driver. It wasn't so much money, although money was a problem. It wasn't the key driver. I just wanted to be great at something. And I feel like nowadays, some of my key drivers are helping people. I feel like that is number one, and that can be internal and external. So helping people get a chance at tech, because there's a lot of people who just simply, I mean, there's nothing wrong with working as a hairdresser or as in retail or in coffee shop. Nothing wrong with that. Been there, done that. But a lot of people want a chance at tech because it's such a cool industry to be in. So I feel like offering that, I don't have any kind of like Jesus complex or like Messiah complex. No, but some people just need a freaking chance. And moreover, there is the external side with clients, where clients also need help because their business depends on operations working. If your operations is not working properly, that means that you don't have longevity. If your people are stressed 8 hours a day, don't be surprised if people start leaving. Nobody leaves a place where it's good. Maybe that doesn't exactly apply for holiday makers, but ultimately, I haven't seen people leave a business where they are well treated, well paid, the hours are great, where all of these things coalesce. I haven't seen people leave those businesses. In fact, our original first ever employee, developer, he's still with us. So I feel like that's one of my drivers right now, including the being successful. Now, I wanted to ask you a bit of a deeper leadership question.
Sure.
What's your philosophy on failure?
I guess from my standpoint, we're all human and we all fail. But I think failure, the key part is taking something away from it, learning from that experience. And I think that's the huge differentiator, is the people who are so driven by success that, yep, we mess up and we fail, but we learn what happened with that mistake to then be able to improve. And then we're not making that same mistake over and over again. The people who are like, cool, it's okay, it's okay to fail, but then I'm going to keep making the same mistake. Those, are the kinds of people who are much less successful overall. So I think failure is just a natural part of the human condition and learning process, but it's what we do with that to improve ourselves that really makes the difference.
The question actually stems from, our experience of training juniors to becoming seniors, as senior developers. And typically, people are so not used to liking failure that they get discouraged. And in fact, I feel like in the low code, no code developer world, failure is something that if you don't do, that's where the problems are. Like if you don't fail, if you don't fail better every time, you kind of like, what are you doing? You can't be super duper successful. There's no way that you get things right the first time.
Sure.
You have to fail. Not only that, I have a lot of cases where a dev might be telling me, well, Alex, if we do this and this and this, it's not going to work. And I can count so many times where I'm actually, like, I know that they haven't tested that. They're just saying it.
Yeah.
They think that they know it. They know that this is going to fail, but they haven't tested it. And guess what? I jump in, I do what they said, and it works. So now we're like, dude, don't tell me something's gonna fail or not work until you've actually got proof right here, right now that you tested it today and it failed, and not in some like hypothetical way.
Some of the best executives that I know, not from a technical standpoint, but they're faced with decision making all day long, and some decisions are going to go well and some aren't, but they have to make decisions quickly, and you have to find someone who can commit to something and then know how to pivot from that. And one of the things that I find then more in our space with no code is that because these technologies are so easy to iterate on, I guess I would say, we're not typically doing this months-long waterfall project, and you gather requirements on day one and you walk away, and then you come back 2 months later and you demo a prototype. Because it happens so quickly and it's so iterative, that you have to be able to have a risk profile to say, yeah, this might not work, but we're going to try it. Okay, that didn't work. Now we're going to try this, and be able to make those changes so quickly. And then there's a lot to learn from it, because you know what works and what doesn't work from the next time. But if you just kind of go in with a mindset of exactly like you're saying, this is kind of the only way to do it, then you're not going to learn those lessons along the way.
I want to touch on the future a little bit, and the future in 2 chapters: the future of our work and the future of all work. So let's talk about the future of our work. And when I say our work, I mean like low code agencies, that sort of thing.
Sure.
What's the future looking like, at least from a consulting perspective, or the no code industry, based on Dan's perspective?
Sure. So more from the consulting standpoint as opposed to like the SaaS side of it, like the software?
Yeah, like not the future of products that we work with, but the future of consulting agencies. Where do you feel like this is going right now?
Yeah, I mean,
it's a broad question.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm curious to hear your thoughts too. I guess for me, with all of the kind of hype cycle behind AI and everything else, sometimes there's this, message that, oh no, what are we going to do? Everything's going to be this point and click, and I can just type what I want for an app into a thing and it spits it out. And I found, now I've been working in tech for a while, and yes, AI is very powerful, but there's always a new technology. There's always something changing and evolving, and it's always going to be the end of the world as we know it for, whatever, according to the media. And all I find is that the best parts are that it democratizes or kind of expands the reach of a given technology, which is good because more people have access. And as more people have access, there's actually higher demand for services. A company to be able to take all of their data and pump it through, have something trained on their data and then be able to interact with it would have been unheard of for a small business a couple of years ago. And now, you can come up with a rudimentary build for this in an hour. And so, I'm not trying to simplify it too much, but I guess what I'm saying is, in general with technology, I feel like you expand access. And so, sure, it might look different in terms of what you're implementing at a larger scale enterprise level, but by increasing access means there's actually higher demand. So in general, for our industry and for consulting, it's like demand is at an all-time high and keeps pushing higher and higher. So I feel like we're at the continual cusp of what's possible, and then what clients are looking for too, because there's greater access to technology.
Other than having more clients or like more demand, do you feel like the relationship between agencies and clients will evolve in the future?
I think it always has potential to evolve, but I also see a lot of agencies that devolve. I can think of a number of marketing agencies that I worked with where just like the relationship becomes less human. It just becomes, here's this packaged up thing and we deliver it to you and whatnot. So it's kind of, I think, on the onus of an individual agency in terms of how they're kind of viewing the landscape. I think because of the democratization aspect of the technology, that gives an opportunity for the right kinds of partners to actually be partners to be proactive and say, here's what we see in your current stack, in your current setup, in your current business processes, and here's how we could implement something to improve that, as opposed to being so, you come in, you want this for a project, we do this for a project, you have this budget. I think there's, given the high ROI of the automation that we do, we find that we're getting more and more of these ongoing relationships where someone comes in the door and they might be looking for, a customer portal or, something that's tightly scoped. But then because of the value that they see, that really increases the focus on the relationship.
And they do so many different things.
Yeah.
It begins with a portal, but then they want something else in a completely different part of the business. Or some friend of theirs who runs a different business in trucking or something needs something. So yeah, I can see that. Well, to weigh in on that question, myself, I feel like the evolution of the relationship, in my mind, the kids that are 20 right now, in 10 years' time, will be 30. There is this study that I read somewhere that usually around 28, guys especially, and gals, but I think there was like some small percentage uptick for guys. Around 28, 29 years old, they get this, quarter life crisis where they're wondering what they're going to do with with the rest of their life, because they're just about to hit 30. And I feel like that's like the guys who are 20 right now and they're maybe in uni, those are the future business owners who have grown up on ChatGPT, who have, to a degree, maybe fiddled with no code, or at least and again, in 8 years, 10 years time, ChatGPT and the rest of the generative AI bunch will have really, I feel, evolved to a huge degree, where I wonder how much of menial tasks we're going to be doing. So I feel like the relationship might change in the sense that the clients will talk more shop with consultants. They're going to be sharper. It's not going to be a black box to them. And maybe it's not going to be such a landscape where we have to build something from scratch. And it's going to be probably more a case of, you know what? I've built about 50% using ChatGPT, and I need Dan or Al to come in and finish the job, because ChatGPT is so good that it can actually take me to a certain degree with my database, with my automation, with my portal, with all of these interesting things. I need an expert to jump in, fix stuff, jump out. So the democratization aspect of it, I feel like it's not just more democratic, but there's going to be more expertise without a lot of effort. Of course, define expertise. Like, what is expertise? Expertise is prompting ChatGPT. Well, no. Expertise, to me at least, means breadth and width or height. Basically, in all directions, that's expertise. Talking about the evolution of all work, where do you feel like we're going to in the generative AI sort of trajectory, at least right now? Do you feel like what I've just described is going to happen, or do you feel like it might take a slightly different trajectory, in the sense that just like in the 60s or 70s, we had father and son working together on a car, and it was totally normal for father and son to change the oil or change the brakes or fiddle with the car. Now we've got Teslas, and ain't nobody gonna open that thing up and fiddle with it.
Sure.
So where do you see this going? Is ChatGPT that catalyst, or ChatGPT, generative AI, is that catalyst that makes that big jump, in the sense that users will treat application development as more of a black box that they're not supposed to touch? Or is it the other way around?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I guess for me, I see so far, if I try to triangulate like what value I've gotten from different AI products and tools, it's not the like all-inclusive, we want to make the app builder that does everything and you can type in a prompt. That actually plays less of a role in value creation than the more niche applications of AI. So an example would be, I'm not sure what you use for video editing, and now mostly I send my stuff to a team. But when I do stuff myself, I'm using a tool called Descript. And in Descript, I can record everything, but I can click a button and it removes all my ums and uhs and so's and filler words. I can use it to highlight text and press delete, and it makes a perfect cut between the video. If I mess up a word, it's trained on my voice, and it can actually regenerate a waveform so that if I said the wrong word, I could replace that with this. So, taking this through the lens of Dan, the marketer or content creator, the value and being able to do my job 20% more efficiently, I see, and then aggregating that over all us knowledge workers, I see being this huge value proposition for what AI can do. App generation, I think it's going to, continue to get better. And I do think there is a bit of a black box effect. And with the black box comes lack of trusting things. So when I was at Sugar, we were doing a lot with AI at the time, and this was the pre-ChatGPT stuff, but they were doing their own training of models. And as we were rolling things out, it'd be predictive. It would say, you've got these opportunities that are closing. This is the opportunity most likely to close. Or this, here's the expected pipeline that we think is going to close. And if you didn't provide all of the context around it, people didn't believe you, and so like we found as we were looking at other technologies that we really had to be specific about why, because people naturally, when it's your core, if you're trusting your business to what opportunities are going to close next quarter, and you're talking about your pipeline, you're not just going to be like, cool, I've got this AI feature and I can just, trust it.
No, it's serious.
It's serious stuff. You need to know that. And so, same thing with apps. I guess it just comes down to how business critical these things are. If they're business critical and it feels like a black box, you're still going to want to work with a human who's been like, hey, we've created hundreds of these things and here are the pitfalls that we see. And no, that's not codified in any kind of training model anywhere that the bot's able to do. Now, I know the technology will continue to improve, but I think if anything, there's going to be a deeper reliance on that top pinnacle of expertise. So will there be, right now, I think I probably get hit up by 20 freelancer, no code, whatever people on LinkedIn a day. And that's awesome. Like we're all at different points in our journey, and that's great. Will there be as high demand for like hundreds of thousands of no code consultants? Probably not. Probably like the overall pool might shrink, but I think the demand is going to be higher for people who really have demonstrable expertise behind it.
Okay. But that answers also my kind of like follow-up question about whether or not we're going to reach some kind of weird place where businesses will almost be able to achieve expert levels of automation. And you kind of answered that. I feel like if it's going to be easier to do some of these things, or if it's going to feel more like a black box, man, you know what? I feel like we're going towards a Skynet sort of situation where we're going to have companies that have no humans, almost, to a degree, and it's going to be like a complete autopilot business. I honestly hope we don't see Dragon's Den for like AI businesses where, look, I've set this robot up and it just works and it brings me money. Do you want to invest $100,000 so that we can make this robot better? I hope we don't get there, because humans are humans, and I think that there is thrill in the chase. I think there's beauty in the struggle of building a business. It's fun.
Just philosophically, I'm like super pragmatic. Like I don't buy into stuff like too early. I'm probably like further behind on buying into things that way. So, I watch a lot of YouTube content. There's tons of people talking about AI and everything else. I find so few people who can actually talk about legitimate revenue generation side of the house for AI. Like, you want to talk about back-end operations. Okay. You want to talk about some delivery. Okay. But the number of videos that I've seen about like, hey, here's how you can create all your social content with AI is like, it's garbage content. You have no perspective. The people who are killing it on LinkedIn and YouTube have a unique perspective because of their human experiences. Now, I'm not saying that some of it's going to work, whatever, but it's just video after video of like, hey, here's how we made a system that can create an ebook about the future of businesses. And then we'll have it automatically generate a landing page with Stripe checkout. And then we can sell this and it's just money in your pocket. And I get, it's a lot of like people that don't quite have the experience and they're jumping on the hype train for it. But, it's like, I almost think we're going to see further human involvement on the revenue generating side of things, that marketing is going to become more human and more personal, because if you just have this vanilla wasteland of AI stuff trying to take your attention, that the one-to-one interactions are going to become
more valuable.
So valuable. Like we talk, we offer a free consultation from our video stuff. Now, could we have a chatbot that could help you type in and understand the scope and deliver you a price on our website? We could do that, but talking to a human being suddenly becomes immensely valuable. We're not charging you for the time. We're having a conversation. We're going to talk about best practices. And I don't think that the human condition is going to be like, cool, I'm just going to come to your website, type and ask a few questions, put in my credit card, and there I go. Humans still buy from humans. And I don't see that changing a whole lot.
Well, look, I was kind of referring to Skynet, not so much from the perspective of garbage YouTube content that you can tell from a mile away, at least right now, that's AI generated, or chatbots that almost feel indistinguishable, or at least they will feel indistinguishable. I'm sure of that. In 4 or 5 years' time, you won't be able to tell. I'm more talking about Skynet from the perspective of running operations in a more traditional business model, where you're maybe importing things from Alibaba and you run a dropshipping store and you have to deal with suppliers, you have to send emails out, you have to run accounts. That sort of thing is where I feel like operations teams might turn in the next 5 to 8 years, I think, more and more autopilot, and good autopilot that doesn't mess around. Email boxes, talking to email boxes kind of thing. Okay, maybe I'm a little bit futuristic in that view.
No, I mean, from an operational standpoint, I think there's some of that makes sense too. But I also think, take any fad in companies like drop shipping, right? Everybody and their dog had a drop shipping business on Amazon, or the period of time where everybody had a blog and SEO optimization and running ads on blogs and whatever. At any point where you then automate a whole bunch of this process and you do democratize, like you expand access so anybody can do a thing, then I always just think that just ups the bar on the businesses that are actually successful. Now you've got all these drop shipping businesses, and I mean, e-com companies during the pandemic, everybody had a Shopify site. Well, the technology's there, and sure, now you can automate, fulfillment and everything on the back end of your Shopify site, but still, like, coming up with innovative products worth buying and getting people to to your store and having that value, like that's where the value is going to be. So I guess I'm like so bullish on the human involvement on creation. And that's, every side that entails, from marketing to sales to product and design. But yeah, I mean, I can see a world where more and more becomes automated on operation, fulfillment kind of side.
I feel like human to human, decision maker to decision maker will not go away.
Yeah.
That won't go away. But maybe humans involved in stupid email chains, wondering why something wasn't delivered, that I feel like is going to become a lot more hands-off. Of course, there has to be a level of trust that needs to be established, a consistent level of trust, because some of these things, just like you said, the pipeline might be an important thing, but for a lot of, let's take e-com for instance, for a lot of e-com businesses, if you don't deliver a product, or you deliver late, or you deliver it and it's like in 100 different pieces, and it's not meant to be in 100 different pieces, that is a very crucial thing. So if AI goes in there and manages to cut down your inbox by 50%, maybe Zendesk or some service like that might introduce something like this. It bloody well be good. But I feel like in the time span of 8 to 10 years, I feel like it's gonna reach a very, very, very different level. Because if you think about 8 years ago, what is this, 2024? So 8 years ago, 2016, we were at the dawn and kind of like beginning steps of Zapier, for instance. Yeah. We were able to create apps with like 2 steps. Come on. And slowly they introduced more steps, for instance. So now it's a joke. We have things like Make, we have things like N8M, we have even Zapier is like a whole empire. Everybody knows what Zapier is. So even the least tech people within a business, within a modern business, right? They know what Zapier is, and they probably use it to some degree somewhere, especially in marketing, I feel. Speaking about the next sort of like 5 to 10 years, if we were to fast forward, what's your boldest vision for automation helpers? What's the impact that you want to have made?
Yeah.
It's a difficult question. I know, but...
So I think for us, we've always viewed what we do on the services side as getting us direct access and talking to clients who have problems to solve. And we view this honestly as kind of almost an incubator of then being able to productize things that come out of it. So right now we're Automation Helpers, the services company, but we hear, I'm sure you feel the same way, you hear similar problems across different clients time and time again. And so for us, it's expanding into a couple different areas, and that's actually where we're headed now in the next couple of years. So right now we do mostly time and material. You come in, you have a problem, we bill you hourly, we solve the problem. And like I said, we have a lot of ongoing relationships from that. But one of the things that we've built hundreds of times is, Airtable's great at like everything, and then you want it to be your CRM, but you can't actually have your emails syncing over and view context, between some different applications. So we're building a Chrome extension right now. It's a side panel, and it's going to let you connect business apps together. All these other automation tools are focused on back-end automation, server level, right? What Zapier is doing and what all these other tools are doing. We're trying to have a UI layer so you can have one spot and it can connect to Notion and Airtable and QuickBooks and have one unified spot where you can enable a lot of what's happening to get context in your different business applications. So for us...
Isn't that like a portal builder though?
Is it? If it's for the internal operations of a business? So the core technology's been there for a while. Salesforce and Microsoft and HubSpot, they all have, you're in your email, you see someone's contact information. But now imagine you can see all of your invoices that are there as well. You can interact with it there. Yeah, You could say it's a portal builder, but the difference between portals, apps, you don't get the context of the application that you're in. And so right now, portals are new tools that, like, you create a portal. Well, now you have to go to the portal to access that information. If you want to be in Airtable, if you want to live in Airtable but see your data in different applications, you either have to pull all of that data into Airtable, or you have to go into each of those applications individually. And we're trying to unify a lot of the sprawl that happens as people are in their 10 different business applications throughout the day. This is just an example of what we want to do. Is we want to take the problems that we hear time and time again from clients and be able to turn it into solutions that you don't have to pay custom services for. We actually want to see our custom services go down as we create
and recurring
options
SaaS revenue go up.
Yeah, but at a way that becomes considerably more affordable. I mean, what you do on a several $1,000 build today, if you could do for a fraction of it at a subscription price, I think, is certainly an end benefit to the customer. The other thing that we're trying to do is really group all of these things together. If you could have a bundle that brings together the licenses you're paying for, the services that you're paying for, the support that you're paying for, and instead do that through a subscription, and it's not everything is services. We're really headed in that direction too. So it's, the biggest part is just by us growing, we get more client conversations. And with those client conversations come different ways of being able to deliver upon that. That if I just said, hey, we're going to kind of stick to a standard services model, that's great. I mean, there's tons of companies that have been successful doing it for years. But for us, it's kind of a broader play into, I think we're mostly focused on the business automation, automating businesses more than we are on app creation or something like that.
Okay. Well, they are not even distant relatives. They are like cousins. Mm-hmm. It's almost impossible to have one without the other, or you might begin your journey from transitioning from Google Sheets, although I've seen multi-million-dollar businesses run on Sheets.
Sure.
And who the hell are we to tell them how to do their thing, right? So can't argue some of those cases, but I would say 8 times out of 10, yeah, people understand that you grow out of Sheets quickly. So the typical journey might be something like Sheets to Airtable, and then we automate. Maybe it begins from the fact that, hey, I want to automate, okay, Airtable, while I'm using Sheets, let me get a consultant. So technically, I feel like at some point, as the business gets all of these new novel approaches, mm-hmm. that it also kind of begins to feel alive, and people also start to use Airtable more and more and more. And I feel like it's a natural progression to wanna introduce some kind of an interface, maybe Airtable interfaces, which I'm 50-50 on, but things like NoLoco, things like Softer, things like Stacker, things like Glide. I feel like it's almost a natural progression that all businesses, after X amount of time, they need this sort of UI layer to bring in their Airtable data, bring in their Xero or QuickBooks data, or their Stripe data, or their, social media performance data, and kind of like allow for one interface. Yes, email in Airtable, I feel like it's going to come at some point, in the sense that you can potentially use Airtable as your CRM, just like you can with HubSpot, just like you can with Sugar, where your email is baked in. Like, you don't have to switch tabs. You can just do it all from Airtable. I feel that that is coming. I wouldn't call it a fool's errand to build an extension for that. I wouldn't really call it a fool's errand. I feel like there's something to gain from it. Hopefully somebody builds that particular bit. I feel like there are a lot of interesting, like there was this client of ours who is using Streak. I've never heard of Streak CRM before, but that thing is such a brilliant idea. Your CRM is in your inbox.
In Gmail.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in Gmail. And it's all kind of like, why hasn't Google built them out yet? Like, this is such a natural thing, you would think, but Streak is still Streak. So I'm really, really excited about the vision that you have for automation helpers. It's definitely definite. It's not pie in the sky. Oh, we just want to be helpful.
And that goes back
That's
to
the name.
Pragmatic kind of person. But, Alex, I think to add one more point is most of the no-code tools that we see are not opinionated. And it makes sense because you can build anything that you want with it, right? Zapier, there's no best practices. Here's a platform and you can build what you want with it. But I think the perspective we're coming to is that there's room for opinionation in what we do because there's only so many ways that you invoice for your business. There's only so many ways that you contract for your business. There's only so many ways that you do certain types of reporting for your business. And it's not to say that those things can't be tweaked or changed, but I guess we're trying to find the opportunities of, well, let's identify those so many ways and build it. So it's not client number 72 coming to us and saying, I want to do QuickBooks and invoicing. Instead we can say, cool, that's all of this is a pre-built system that you can use. You want to make changes? Awesome. That's going to cut way down on costs to be able to do it. So I think that's where we're coming at from the perspective of we love custom services, but there's so many lessons to be learned. And I haven't heard a whole lot of people talking about, awesome, here's a way we can get you on something that's working and functioning. And now we're making small changes as opposed to we're building this from scratch.
It's almost like your vision is to build a mini ERP, so to speak. But instead of, it's almost like, how Zoho could be roughly considered an ERP in the sense that they have these modules that you kind of like bolt on to each other. But instead of those modules being Zoho modules, I can imagine that you can build a mini ERP with a unified interface, but instead of a Zoho module, you could be using QuickBooks. You could be using, I don't know, Airtable, or you could be using a bunch of other services that act as modules. Then again, I feel the same way in the sense that it doesn't feel to me like there's anything new under the sun, but the clients feel that their process is so freaking unique that it's really hard to argue with that. And that's why there is an argument, I feel, to be made that if we are dealing with a off-the-shelf product, you're naturally going to be limited to how it behaves.
And that's why for us it's a bundling of the services with it. But let's just say, some integration takes you 20 hours to talk to clients, build, vet, run through testing, everything else. And if you were 80% of the way there, and so instead only having a couple hours that are spent on tweaking and modifying, I think that's where we want to get that added value for the customer. Because typically when we talk to people, you're right. I mean, their overall process, we're a publishing business, but we only publish dog books in Australia. There's always things that are like, there's no other business like us. We're doing it this way. But still the high level business processes of what companies do, there's still a lot of shared knowledge. And I think for us, it's trying to accrue that shared knowledge and somehow turn that into something that people can find value in. Because I agree, if you come in and you're like, here's our off-the-shelf product and click a button and it works just that way. I mean, that's sales schmuckiness that no one needs, right? Everyone has unique parts of their business. But I've never had a single client where they say, here's my process. And we're like, cool. Do you want to hear how we've solved the same problem a couple different ways for these other clients? And then we show them and they're like, oh, I think that could work. I just need this a little bit different. And that's I think what we're really trying to capitalize on is, yes, businesses are unique, but also there's a lot of commonalities between back-end operations processes.
Love it. Well, Dan, believe it or not, that's me. That's my questions. And as I usually do, this is the time to ask me questions, if you've got any.
Yeah, I love it. So I was listening to your last interview with the StackBy founder, and so it was fun to hear kind of your journey and where you started, and you guys have been around for a while. So one question, I mean, YouTuber to YouTuber, I guess, you've started investing in all this amazing content, and I love, your thumbnails and the kinds of stuff you're putting out. Did you kind of hit this point where you're like, hey, I want to double down on what I'm doing? Like, what's been the evolution of you as an agency and you as a content creator?
I've been waiting for this question. Yes. So we've done it backwards. And when I say we've done it backwards, we've done the whole thing backwards. We began as an agency and we went all in on projects, on doing the work, from zero to absolute hero, and maintaining that and getting our processes in order internally, training, accounts, project management, making sure that clients week on week, every single week in, week out, get a report of what we've done in the previous week, what their hours are, where are they with their retainer. We invested heavily for years in becoming a great agency. And at some point it kind of hit me that, look, we need longevity. We need longevity in the sense that we need better quality leads. We need basically best known beats best every day. So we were the best implementation team, but we weren't best known. Not only that, I kind of gathered this, it kind of was dawning on me over the years, because we were getting clients, frustrated clients from other agencies, reach out to us through different channels, not YouTube. And I was like, but hey, hold on. This guy is everybody knows him. Dude, you build these personas in your mind about who this person is and all of that. But turns out they messed up on a project or two or five. And we're like, okay, look at that. They messed up on this. And now we have one of our best clients, for instance, who was jumping ship from another consultant. But I realized that we were missing that important thing. And after a very tumultuous 3-month period last year, it was October, November, December, I took on a project or two myself, super difficult projects, quick turnaround, really high energy clients that, super sharp, know exactly what they want and they want it now. And you get daily calls with them, or more than daily. After those projects, I kind of vowed that, you know what, dude, that's it. As a leader, I've got mouths to feed. I've got people on payroll, right? So my mission is to make us best known. And that's what I need to pay super, super, super serious attention to. We began doing a lot of interesting things last year with YouTube, just because it's a healthy thing to do. I feel this also stems, and again, this is maybe just my opinion, but I feel the consultant of the future needs to have more than just experience. If you don't show signs that you are sharp as a tack, that you're enthusiastic, that you've been there, done that, and here's my long YouTube back catalog of ideas. If you don't have that, I feel like you might be the best, but ultimately there are people who are probably as good, and they have, just like Dan, they have the team to support you with your build, and you can see the proof in the pudding. Like, look, he's got X amount of YouTube videos. His posts on LinkedIn are doing great. And maybe, you know what? Not everybody can afford Dan or Alex. Maybe you can settle for somebody who's a little bit cheaper, who does not have the luxury of running a YouTube channel, because it's a lot of work. It's almost a full-time job, I must admit.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
Not only that, like, we have a whole team, somebody for thumbnails, somebody for shorts, somebody to project manage the damn thing, two editors.
Wait. Okay, so now I gotta ask editor, about
and then there's a QA of the editor. Like, damn.
Do you use a service, or did you bring everybody in-house?
Bring everybody in-house.
You did? That's awesome.
Yes. Because otherwise you don't get consistency, you don't get speed. I want to be able to shoot and let the team take over and be able to control it from afar, because that was always the bane of my YouTube existence. I had edited videos for a while, from the days when I was working for my dad for like 2010 or something. And I know it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. And I'm just not good at it. And I don't enjoy it. I mean, I am good at it, but I just don't enjoy the process. It's too creative. It's too time consuming. Okay, maybe with modern tools like Descript, you can kind of cut back a little bit. You still have to edit. You still have to cut.
It's the bane
You
of
still
editing.
have to...
Yeah.
Exactly. We have a team dedicated just for that. Whole other payroll, whole other budget just for YouTube. And as we get better at it, you know, hopefully we can start doing more and more and more. But I know that's worth it. And you know what? It took at least 100 videos for us to see genuine, some kind of interest, leads, something like that. And we're only like at 1.7 thousand subscribers. I can't imagine what's happening in the stratospheric levels where you are at like 15,000, or where Gareth is at 33,000 or whatever it is. So I can't imagine what kind of war is happening at that point. But at 1.7 and 100 videos in, 2 videos a week, maybe a short a week, you know, consistent effort, we are slowly seeing something come out of it.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible, the journey and that experience of creating the content. And then I always find it interesting. I'm sure when your leads come in and people who are like, I just binge watched 20 of your videos.
Yeah,
it's fun because it elevates the one-to-many experience, where then you can coach and train and help a whole lot of people that, even if they never work with you for services, it's just pretty cool to see the educational impact that makes.
Exactly. Well, Dan, hopefully I've answered your question.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Alex. This was great. Really appreciate the time and inviting me. It's been a pleasure to chat with you today.
Awesome. Dan, thank you so much. I'm grateful for your time as well. Hopefully, I think we should do this like a yearly thing. We should catch up again, maybe in a year, to see how things have evolved, industry-wise, automation helper-wise, YouTube-wise even. It's something that constantly evolves. And it's nice to know that there are good people out there, like yourself, who are not just YouTubers, not just like, here is a basic thing that I can show you how to build, but they actually have got the capacity and the technical know-how and the vision to take clients through a custom process, but also through hopefully potentially an off-the-shelf SaaS thing. I ramble. Dan, thank you so much, man.
Yeah.
Looking forward to catching up.
Yeah, it'll be great. Appreciate it.